This is the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Along with the Contemporary and Polynesian, it is one of 3 resorts that sit alongside the Seven Seas Lagoon and is connected to the Magic Kingdom via monorail. It is one of the more beautiful and picturesque resorts at Disney, and so unsurprisingly, it is also one of the more expensive. Today, we are not going to talk about the Grand Floridian. Today, we are going to talk about one of the hotels that inspired the hotel. Now, like many projects at Disney World, the Grand Floridian draws inspiration from a number of sources. Obviously, in this case, these sources are other historic hotels, and they include resorts such as the Mount Washington Resort in New Hampshire, the Grand Hotel in Michigan, and the Bellevue Biltmore Hotel in Florida. However, today we're going to talk about one of the more prominent and famous sources of inspiration for the Grand Floridian, and that is the Hotel del Coronado, otherwise affectionately known as the Del, located just outside of San Diego in California. It was 1884 when Elijah Babcock Jr., a telephone company executive, and Hampton Story, founder of a piano company, arrived in San Diego. The two initially didn't know each other, but during a quail hunting trip on a peninsula off the coast, they both realized that the area would make for a fantastic resort destination. So for the grand total of $110,000, the two purchased the 4,100-acre plot of land with the dream of transforming the area into a Southern California paradise that would be home to the grandest hotel in the country, if not the world. With the idea that it would be the, quote, King of the West when it came to resorts, they named the area Coronado, which was Spanish for the crowned one. A couple of years later, in 1886, they would split up the land into lots, saving a large piece of the beachfront for their hotel, and auctioned off the rest. They attracted over 300 buyers who ultimately paid around $100,000 in total for their lots. By the following year, that total would exceed $1.5 million, and by the time all of the lots were sold, it would bring in a grand total of $2.25 million. The idea was that the revenue brought in from the sale of these lots would pay for the construction of the hotel itself. Using part of that money, they hired the Reed brothers of Indiana to design this hotel paradise. It was an all-wooden hotel that utilized what was called Queen Anne Revival architecture. It was actually a little confusing. There was a Queen Anne style of architecture in the early 1700s, but it was actually called English Baroque. Then in the late 1800s, an architect named Richard Norman Shaw popularized a style that he called Queen Anne style since it drew from that English Baroque era. Except for the fact that it actually didn't. As it turns out, it was more similar to Elizabethan and Jacobean era architecture. The name stuck anyway, and so it remained Queen Anne style despite not actually being Queen Anne style. To add to the confusion, this all took place during the Victorian era, so it was all also Victorian architecture. In any case, with the hotel designed and ready, the construction team broke ground in March of 1887, and over the following 11 months, a team of over 250 workers raised what would become the largest hotel in the world. There was so much lumber on site that smoking around the hotel while it was being built was reportedly banned, out of fear of what might happen if a fire were to break out. When it finally opened in February of 1888, it sported 400 guest rooms and was widely considered, beyond being the largest hotel in the world, to be one of the most technologically advanced as well. Because you see, the Del offered a new blossoming modern marvel that had only really begun to commercially spread over the previous few years. Electricity. But that's not all. The hotel also offered telephone service, which had only just reached that part of California 7 years earlier. The final price tag? Just around $1 million. At opening, rooms went for around $2.50 a night, which included with it 3 meals. Try getting that kind of deal today. Over the following 100 years, it would see famous guests from all around the world, including many US presidents, members of the royal family, and more celebrities than you could count. It offered more firsts, such as the first outdoor electrically lit Christmas tree. It would also appear in multiple films, the most notable being the 1958 Marilyn Monroe-Tony Curtis comedy Some Like It Hot. In short, it became a San Diego and Southern Californian icon. In 1977, its historic background would be made official when it was finally designated as a National Historic Landmark. And just 11 years later, in 1988, just in time for its centennial, its influence would spread once more, this time to the East Coast. Disney was looking to finally build a third hotel along the Seven Seas Lagoon, and the concept they'd ultimately go with was a turn-of-the-century Victorian beach resort. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, they'd end up taking inspiration from a handful of different sources, as Imagineers tend to do. But there's no denying the overwhelming influence the Hotel del Coronado had on the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. Now, of course, it would be silly to think that there wouldn't be a Grand Floridian Resort had the Hotel del Coronado not existed. Disney would have expanded either way. However, I think it's safe to say that without the Del, the hotel we would have gotten would have looked quite different. So the next time you're staying at the Grand Floridian, or if you're like me, the next time you're passing it by and wishing you were staying at the Grand Floridian, just remember that the seeds of what it would eventually become were planted over 130 years ago.